Once we get down the line, you're thinking about what you'd like to ask these people, and we'll just go from there, and an hour will fly by. All right. So what I'd like people to say is tell us a little bit about your education in printmaking and what you are doing with that now.
Okay. So I took my first printmaking class in my second year.
Go ahead.
I took an etching class and I fell in love with printmaking, and throughout the course of my college education tried to take as many classes as I possibly could and dabbled in different majors and kind of ended up being a printmaking major because I just loved it so much and it was wonderful. I took all the ones I could, and so after graduating I worked full-time at a commercial printing shop in Cockeysville. We do embroidery, screen printing, offset litho, other kinds of printing, and I mostly do embroidery and help with the screen printing. So a lot of the things that I learned in my various classes at school really helped me be able to do my job well.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing now. That's a great intro. Thanks.
Oh yeah, there's the embroidery machine separate. I think I was sewing a bathrobe that day. And there's the print shop. So I would say I work in, it's a little more commercial, it's not as fine art. Sometimes we print things that maybe aren't the best design, but it's a really good job, it's consistent. I work 9 to 5. And so for me, being able to pay my bills and have that, like, go to work, come home is really, I don't know, satisfying for me. And there is the automatic screen printing press that I've been learning to use the last couple months. It's very scary, but it's very fun. I think Justin also works with one of those.
Do you do that?
We do. So we do a lot of different work. I handle almost all of the embroidery, and we've started to do jobs for Towson University. In fact, today I was sewing saddle pads for Towson Equestrian Club, which I didn't know there was an equestrian club, but we have one. So, yeah.
It looks like we're getting to some of your students.
And here's some of my work. This is a print of Adriana, who's sitting over here. That was one of my final works in my last semester. That was in the student show. So I took all different kinds of lithograph. I think I started with etching, and then I took screen process, lithography. How many did I take? I took Ursula's letterpress class. Relief, that's right, I did that one. I think I took artist print twice. I took as many as I possibly could, even though I didn't need them, just because I loved it so much.
Perfect, there's Jordan.
All right. Let's see. So I went to community college at Montgomery College, and I just majored in studio art. I started to experiment with screen printing on my own. I printed like my own band's T-shirt, and then there was sort of a gap until I picked up screen printing again. But I transferred to Towson. I took Ursula's class at some point. I took her bookbinding and letterpress class. I was majoring in graphic design, so I really wanted to get some exposure to letterpress. And then I, like, just right before I graduated, I took a screen printing class with Jordan Bernier the last semester. And while I was still in school, I started to design a lot of posters. Like, I kind of had one foot in school and, like, was excited to, like, 1 foot out the door, sort of, like, excited to do real work for bands and local shows and art scenes and stuff like that. So I screen printed a lot of posters. By the time I graduated, I had done like maybe a couple dozen like real show posters that I was pretty proud of. And then moving on from there, before I graduated, I started developing my own series of notebook designs while I was in Ursula's class. And I used that as my BFA project for graphic design. That's my brand, Wonder Books. So this is an example. The green and blue cover of that last slide was a book called The Comic Companion, which I designed for people who do stand-up comedy. I do it a little bit. I do open mics and stuff. But I think it's always fun to take what you're interested in.
There it is.
Take what you're interested in outside of the art form that we're talking about and apply that stuff to it. So like, how can you use your art form to make posters for people who, don't have access to like good design? You can like fit into a lot of different sort of ancillary scenes and stuff. And so it makes your work a very specific thing. So yeah, Wonder Books is my notebook brand. Obviously, there's a ton of notebook brands out there already that I look up to, but I think it's fun to like design a notebook how I would like to, and try to design notebooks that nobody else is making. And all of my stuff is screen printed at this point. Yeah, either me or hiring somebody else to screen print for me. This is my friend Elizabeth Norman did these block prints, or that's a block print, or the two on the sides are hers, and the middle is my design. So that was really cool. I really like that with screen printing. You can put other mediums through it. So yeah, I like to make it sort of an artsy sort of brand, if you will. And I'm just sort of trying to build that up right now. It's a part of like working part-time, doing freelance design, and then trying to build up this Wonder Books notebook brand until that can sustain my, be my main thing.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin Ostrofsky. I went to community college for my first 2 years in business administration. So it was like kind of a focused degree. I didn't want to just get like general studies, mostly because my dad told me that's what I should probably do. When I was going to come to Towson, again, it was like, you should probably go for business. But when I found out how many more accounting classes I was going to have to take, I thought I'd probably never finish school, and I probably wouldn't have. So luckily I came to orientation day with my mom, and she was like, maybe you should check out the art department. So that's what I did. And my first printmaking class was actually with Tony Matthews. It was lithography, which I don't know if anybody's taken lithography before or knows anything about lithography, but it's like the most difficult printmaking class you could ever imagine taking.
But did you break a stone?
I didn't break a stone. Did you break a stone? Oh man, that's sacrilege right there. But yeah, so for some reason I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the pain and the torture of lithography. So I continued to take more printmaking classes, and I think around that time was when the illustration, printmaking, and painting new degree like popped up. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was actually a condensed course, so I could actually graduate a little bit earlier and take like more of a variety of classes, which was like super appealing to me because I'm all over the place with my interests. I like, drawing, printmaking, painting, I like them all. So it worked out perfectly for me. And while I was in school, I was working at a restaurant called Atwater's. I don't know if anybody knows about that restaurant. So the owner there knew that I was taking printmaking and art classes here, and he asked if I could design the new T-shirt, and I said, "Yeah, of course, I'm gonna design the new T-shirt. Are you gonna pay me to do that?" So I just did it anyway. And then he asked if I could print them, and at that time I had no means of printing T-shirts, but I was like, "Yes, sign me up. I will do that." So I found a friend who had a whole setup in their basement. It was a really cramped basement. I couldn't stand up in it. But me and my best friend, Cody Nenninger right there, wave. He said, yeah, we're gonna get this done. And so we ended up just liking the process and continuing to print for Atwater's anytime it was requested to do so. And then from there, I met somebody at the restaurant that I was working at who worked at another print shop way up in Harford County. And he was actually moving to California, and he asked if I would, take a job there. And it had a automated press and everything. It was like a really big warehouse space. It was called STEM Graphics. Anyone who's familiar with that? No, I don't know. But it was a long commute. I had to, drive like an hour out of the city every day. But the owner there said that I could, work for him and then use his equipment to grow what I was starting or what me and my friend were starting. And so from there we had an automatic press. We had all the time in the world. We could stay after hours, print all of our stuff. We learned about, how to like the business side of the printmaking world. And we built up a client list from there. It was a lot of word of mouth stuff, like basically from Atwater's, people come in and see it and be like, who does your stuff? And then it just kind of grew from there. And then after a while, we didn't actually have enough time to do both things. So me and Cody had to go off on our own. And basically we linked up with the person beforehand who let us use their basement. And they were in an even more cramped basement at this point. So yeah, so we had to kind of like downgrade to go off on our own. And then after a while, through another connection, this guy who owns Walter Gardens, his name is Matt, what's his last name?
I couldn't even tell you.
Matt Walter Gardens. But he was in his actual, like, his home is inside of this big warehouse where he's building art spaces for a lot of people. So he was interested in like an art space too. Come see me after this.
$1 square foot.
$1 square foot. So
That's a deal.
yeah, it's not bad, right? So now we share a space with that person who we first started with. They get a couple days a week, we get a couple days a week, and we have a full client list that's like growing every day. There's new people that reach out to us, and I think it's just because, you know, we like talk to people and it's all about customer service and everything. But yeah, so that's pretty much, now I'm here in Towson. That's where I started, and talking to you guys. Yeah.
Say what your business is called.
Oh yeah, my business is called Momentum Printing and Productions.
Good job.
Thank you. I actually have a lot of business cards. I'm just going to throw them out into the crowd whenever.
T-shirts too, please.
Yeah, I'll have one of those guns. Yeah, things.
I like how close do I hold this? Is
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name is Luke Martin. I'm an illustrator, printmaker, and I went to Towson too. I first started screen printing. I did my first print my senior year of high school, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like you don't really know what you're getting yourself into until like you do it, and then you realize it's like one of the greatest like art mediums ever, like screen printing. So when I came here in spring of 2016, I took a Screen 1 with Jordan Bernier, and I kind of just tried to learn like as much as I could through him and kind of like what like he teaches the class and stuff. And it's like I'd kind of spend like my days like in between classes like with like Mylar and Deco markers like drawing transparencies for new posters, and then at night I would just like pull all-nighters in the studio like making new prints. So it's like just trying to make like something new as much as I could. So that was fun. And after Jordan's class, I stuck around during summer 2016, and like I was in here a lot printing and stuff. And then in fall of 2016, I took Screen 2 with Tanya Z, who I don't think is here.
But her heart is.
Oh. I took Screen 2 with Tanya Z, and she kind of let me sort of like do my own thing with like making art prints and stuff like that. And I started doing different styles where it was like I would do the illustration work by hand in pen and ink, and then scan it in Photoshop, and then color it, and then screen print it. And that's still generally how I work with most of my stuff. Is I'll do the line work on Clayboard and then color it in Photoshop. And then in October of 2016, I actually withdrew from classes due to some mental health issues that I was working through at the time. And in that time off, like I still kind of like kept in touch with like Tiny Z and Tiny Matthews, and I was helping out with classes. And in exchange for that, they let me continue to print here. So I would be in here at nights, usually just printing as much stuff as I could. And then that time off, I started getting contacted by bands to do artwork for them. And I started with some smaller bands in 2016, just like doing like smaller runs of like 100 posters and stuff like that, like 3 colors. And then it all sort of kind of just like snowballed. And so I was printing there for about 2 years, just overnights. And then eventually I started just outsourcing my printing. And I mainly just focus on illustration work now. Like I'll illustrate everything I send to a shop that's out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they do a great job. But it was really cool to kind of like be able to sort of just like slowly like build, and I don't know, still kind of just figuring it out as I go along, I think. But yeah.
And what's your business called?
It's called Suburban Adventure Studios.
Good job.
There you go.
All right, my name is Val Lucas. I went to MICA and did a lot of drawing and painting. I think when I started, I thought I was going to be a painter like everybody. Took some printmaking classes. I remember absolutely hating doing relief in my general printmaking intro class. Did some other stuff, and then my very last semester at MICA, I took a letterpress class, and I just walked into the letterpress room, saw all the little compartments full of little bits of metal, and just totally fell in love with it. So I graduated in 2005, started working at a stationery shop up in Towson, and started bringing home really heavy letterpresses. The first press that I dragged home weighs 1,800 pounds. My dad helped me get it out of a basement in Baltimore. So after that one class, I kind of knew that this was something special and that I wanted to really get into letterpress printing. When I graduated, there were really no community letterpress shops available. So that's why I started hoarding my own equipment. I also helped Tanya Matthews here get some letterpress for Towson, so we now have 2 letterpresses for students to use. So I was able to come in and print here. I would come in after my stationery shop job and print wedding invitations and greeting cards. My business, which is called Bower Box Press, has really evolved over the last 11, 12 years. Started out doing greeting cards and custom work like wedding invitations. I did the National Stationery Show a couple of times, which is the big wholesale show, so I was creating my own line of greeting cards to try to sell to retailers in large quantities. Didn't do as great as I wanted to and realized it really wasn't what made me happy. So now I am really focusing on making my own fine artwork, which is mostly reduction woodcut prints with hand-set letterpress type, wood and metal type, and I'm getting back into doing more artist books. So I'm selling a lot at craft fairs. I have 7 solid weekends of craft fairs coming up for the holiday season, and I sell through my own website and I do custom work for people. So it does really support a lot of my expenses, but then I also teach here and I do some other graphic design and custom work on the side. But I just remember absolutely hating this process when I first learned it. And I have a scar on my hand from when I was about 12 from doing lino cut, and somehow it was just destiny and it's what I ended up doing.
Okay, so we're gonna let these run. Does anybody have questions right now as they were talking? Anything come up that you would like to know? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody do that? Oh, the black shirt first and then the green.
A lot of you talked about how you were introduced to printmaking in college. Did any of you have any prior experience before college? Because I was also introduced to printmaking until like sophomore year of college. I didn't know anything about it before, so I wanted to see if you guys had any prior experience before higher education.
Yeah, it's been on the line.
So I didn't know anything about printmaking until maybe my second semester of my freshman year of community college. I also went to Montgomery College. We've known each other for a while. And I had seen the prints hanging in the store because I worked in the school store and everyone who worked there had artwork on the wall anyways. And so I saw them and I was like, what is this? Why are these look so cool? They're not paintings, they're not drawings, what could they be? And I found out they were prints. And I was able to take an etching class my last semester. I knew I wanted to take printmaking, I could only take one. I took an etching class, and that was just kind of the gateway drug. It's like, oh, I didn't know about all this wonderful, weird stuff we can do. So that was my first experience, but it wasn't until my second year of college that I first took a printmaking class.
I do remember I did a lino cut print like in a middle school art class, so that was my first introduction to that. And then I guess also in Montgomery College I took the relief and litho class, yeah. So that was sort of like, it got me thinking with like the block, especially with the relief printing more like graphically and thinking about how block printing can be sort of advantageous for like learning how to think about like simplifying forms and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really have any printmaking classes like in my high school or anything, but I liked designing my own shirts a lot. So what I would do is like make stencils. So if everybody knows, like, you know, you can do it that way too. You just make a stencil out of like cardboard or like poster paper, and then I would take a sponge and then just sort of like dab whatever fabric paint from like, you know, AC Moore or whatever, Michaels on it. But yeah, I would do that a lot. And then when other kids in school would be like, hey, where'd you get that shirt? And I'd be like, I made it. Kind of like turned me on to like the whole idea of printmaking and doing that for a living, even though not knowing anything about like the proper way to do it. So yeah.
When I was in high school, I had a little knowledge of printmaking. It was like a lot of my favorite artists were all these people doing like gig posters and stuff like that, like all screen printed gig posters, and I was like, I want to do that. And I didn't really know anything about the process though, so it wasn't really until like when I was a senior in high school, like I made my first screen print out of just like cutting Rubylith, and it's like very like like the old-fashioned way. But it really wasn't until I came to Towson that like I kind of got more of that knowledge of it, I guess. But I did a little block printing before I did screen printing. Like my first semester here, before I actually took a print class, like I would do block prints on like the floor of my bedroom, and I would actually bug Tanya Matthews to let me come to the studio and use the press, but she wouldn't let me because I wasn't taking a print class yet. So I don't know if you remember.
I know.
It
I'm like,
happened. You turned it down.
you gotta sign up.
I remember doing like potato prints as a really little kid, and then doing the kind of styrofoam prints you draw on it and then ink it up. I did have a little more in high school. It was definitely the art dork in high school, and we had some relief like sections in art class. But at Micah was where I was really exposed to all the different types and styles of printmaking.
The person in the green had a question too.
I had a question specifically for the gentleman in the yellow hat. Sorry, I don't remember. Luke.
Yes.
So you mentioned that eventually larger bands started reaching out to you, and I noticed in some of your pictures you print for a lot of really well-known bands. So I'm just curious how that happens. Like, did they just find you randomly?
Yeah.
Did you have a connection, or?
A lot of it's like working through their merchandising companies like Live Nation and stuff like that, who will basically produce all the merch for these shows. It's like they'll commission me to do a poster for the show, and then they use it to promote the show, but then they also sell them at the show, basically. So it kind of comes from a lot of different sources. Like some bands, they work through agencies. Some bands, it's just like a lone agent who works for the band. So it really varies.
Did you reach out to them, or did they see you?
When I was like first starting off, it was kind of like I remember when I first started off, I wrote a list of my 100 favorite bands, and I tried to find the email contacts for all of them, and I emailed all of them. And I heard back from maybe like 5, and they were all like, yeah, we're not looking for anything, but we'll let you know. But then there was one guy who owns like this merch company called Garageland, where it's like they're on Instagram and stuff. And he like hit me up and he was like, hey, like we do stuff for bands, like, you know, I'd love to hire you for some of it. And like he hired me for like some smaller jobs, but then like that kind of started to get the attention of like other people too. So it was really kind of just like starting small and just like building up, basically. I don't know if that answers your question.
Definitely, it's great. It's very cool.
Julia.
How do you guys market your businesses?
Anybody want to go?
Let's see, I think, well, I work for a business, isn't it?
Yeah, I know people work
Yeah.
for business.
So I don't do that.
But you probably have things to say.
Sort of like, I guess I would say maybe I was approaching like doing posters a little bit differently than Luke was, but like I was sort of always like trying to find people that I knew or like band, like sort of like local bands, and I knew that they wouldn't be able to pay me like enough to do a custom poster and screen printing, but I would still sort of like offer it to them. So I would say, you know, I'll design it for this fee, and then maybe I can sell them at the shows and try to make a little bit of money. So I sort of like, I was always trying to put my work out there, like doing work, especially for people whose artwork I admired of theirs. Like, so I knew that I could offer something that they could use to promote their stuff, you know, comedians or local bands and stuff. Like, I feel like that's always good to sort of like offer your stuff up to people that are out there doing stuff that you admire, and then eventually people will start hitting you up and saying, oh, you do this good work, can you do it for this show or whatever. I'm still not making a ton at like this, at the type of stuff that I want to do, but it's always worth it to get your stuff out there a little
Which
bit.
do you like better though, the silk screen, doing the posters or making the sketchbooks?
Well, I'd say both of them are sort of, well, I guess I moved more towards like just work. I don't really screen print gig posters anymore right now. I do all the posters I just design and just, I don't usually screen print them, but I do find that the screen printing has affected how I design things, because it's total, like I design things like it would be screen printed pretty much, just because how I learned how to build up colors and stuff like that. Yeah.
So Justin? Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I would say that marketing is probably our business's weakest link right now, because what we do is a lot of we do some social media, so we'll do some Instagram and whatnot, but it's always hard for us to like just find the time, like, oh, the job's done, let's put it in the box, let's give it to our customer, and go, oh, we never took a picture of that, that's not good. But so there are tools that you can use though for like online SEO. One thing that my now fiance Kelsey Sartori told me back in the day was I need to boost my Google Plus page. So basically getting ratings and reviews from customers that had positive experiences with the company and getting as much as possible. And at that point we had at least like 25 or 30 clients that we could work from, and we have a really good like personal relationship with all of our clients, so we emailed all of them within like a couple weeks, and they all sent back 5-star ratings and great reviews, and that boosted everything on our online platform. Then we just had people emailing and calling us constantly, just looking up Baltimore screen printing, and we're like one of the first that comes up, and that was basically due to our SEO. And there's another company, Captain Jerry's, I don't know if anybody's heard of that t-shirt company. It's been in Maryland for quite a long time, and they had like I think 3 ratings and reviews, and right after we got like 30 of them, then they were like really boosting their ratings and reviews, and it was like, okay, so we're doing something right now. We're kind of like gunning for like top competition and all that. So yeah, I would just say like the SEO game for us has been really helpful, but we definitely need to start doing more Instagram and stuff like that too, so don't hold it against us.
Out of everything like an artist can do to market themselves, I found Instagram is by far the best tool at your disposal, because it's like you have so many different ways that you can reach like all new people to like find your stuff. And if you like put that like posting like every day, every other day, like just keeping your work constantly in front of people is really the best way to kind of get that attention, I think. I've never found Twitter or any of those other ones to be very useful for an artist to kind of promote themselves. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think Instagram is definitely the best of the social media sites. So I have a pretty active page. I try to post a lot, but I find that most of my marketing comes really from in-person marketing, especially at craft shows. So really getting to talk to people and meet people in person, kind of explain what I'm about, really helps them connect with my work. I try to keep up with my email mailing list, but that's one of the things that usually falls behind. So I'll collect people's emails at a craft fair and then try to send out updates about shows and things. I'm also a part of the Charm City Craft Mafia, so I get a lot of exposure through that. We try to cross-promote each other, so we're kind of a little business network for crafty businesses in Baltimore, so we all help each other out promotion-wise that way. But I find that in-person marketing is the best for me, like at shows, to actually connect with people.
Yes.
So this is called the future of printmaking, right? How do you think that technology influences your craft and what you do?
Anybody eager to answer that?
Well, I can talk about it with letterpress. So traditional letterpress uses pieces of metal and wood, and if you run out of ease, you're out of ease, and you can't print that word. But with the digital technologies that we have, we can make polymer plates that you can print on the old letterpress with and get that really deep embossed into the paper. You can print any design from anybody using any font, any logo, as many colors as you want, and get perfect registration. So that is really one of the reasons that letterpress has kind of surged in popularity in the last 15 years. Being able to use digital processes to make your printing plates from, but still using the old machinery. So I think that's really helped letterpress in particular stay alive. Plus all of the social media technology just garnering interest in these old techniques. I mean, I think probably 10 years ago, all the letterpress printers were kind of working in isolation, and now there's a really big connected network of people. So if you have press problems, if you have questions about running a business, you have all these people you can connect to instantly, and you can see what they're doing, and you can get inspired, and you can also share your own work. So having that interconnected web of people on the internet has really helped, I would say, just art in general.
For me personally, I guess Photoshop that's one of the main components in the work that I do, and I would not be able to do any of the stuff that I do without that, because it's like when like before people were really using computers for screen printing, it's like you had to manually make each layer by hand, and it's like your layers would only be like as exact as you could cut it with an X-Acto knife. But with this, it's like I have the ability to basically take an illustration and then transfer that to a screen print, which would be much more difficult to do without Photoshop and Illustrator and those different tools. But also, building off what Val said too, it just like the social media and the connectivity that's come with this modern age, it's really kind of bolstered these printmaking communities a lot, because back in like 60s and 70s, like gig posters were like a really big thing, but they really kind of died out for a while, just because it's like people either weren't going to shows or people just weren't buying posters. But it's like, like you would go to a show and buy a poster and have no idea who made it because there's no one you could ask. But it's like now there's all these like forums and websites and stuff, and it's just like it's kind of like an underground community, but it's a very active and widely spreading community, which it's really cool to be a part of, like something that's like not a lot of people know about, but that is still very like, I don't know, healthy, I guess.
So what's kind of interesting about printing, especially on T-shirts, is that the technology grows every year to every 2 years. There's a new automated press that's quieter, that's quicker, that uses less energy. There's automated cleaning machines, so you don't even need somebody who's actually doing all the different processes of like reclaiming a screen. But the thing is it always remains that it's still printing on T-shirts. It's still using a squeegee to get ink on fabric. It's always going to be that, I think, until of course the future happens. But there's other processes known as direct-to-garment printing, which we actually have access to, and there are machines out there that can every color imaginable. It just like sprays onto a shirt, but it takes a lot of time. So with processes like that, they have their good qualities. Like if somebody just wants one T-shirt, they don't have to make every single screen for like a 5-color design. They can just go to somebody who has a direct garment machine. It takes longer, but they still can make something like that happen. But for like large orders, like mass quantity, like posters, anything like that, whenever there's something of a larger amount, screen printing still just seems to be the result. It just seems to be the thing that people turn to. So, man, I don't know. It seems like it might be old technology, but it's still here, and I think it still will be for quite a long time. So, I hope that answers your question.
Do you want to add to that, Chloe? Because it seems like there's plenty of overlap, and then we'll go back to Jordan.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So the shop I work at, my boss, he used to do a lot of printing for BG, worked in the printing department, and when a lot of things happened, he got some of the equipment. So we have 2 really old letter presses. We have a Heidelberg and a Kluge, and I think for a while it was like not really that cool and we weren't using them that much. But now we're one of the few shops in the area that still have those machines, and we can do stuff. Like we can do die cutting and stuff like what you do with the polymer plates. And so now it's actually really cool that we can do that. A lot of shops don't offer it. They only have the more modern technology, but we've held on to the older things. And that's one of the special things we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say I think one of the things I really like about screen printing specifically is that you can put any medium through it. So like you can put a block print and convert that to a screen print, and then suddenly you're able to print it really quickly. And then also the same with like digital stuff. You can do like a watercolor illustration and then convert that to a halftone or something like that. You can really like mix a lot of different media, and then all of it is going into this final form where you're really putting ink on paper. And I think the other interesting thing to consider about technology is that we experience stuff like that less, I guess, because we usually experience images like online. So people probably have more of a yearning to be able to feel something that's physically printed. Like you can feel the difference between something that's digitally printed with toner and something that's screen printed or letterpress. And letterpress especially goes one step further where it's digging into the paper. So all that's super cool. I think it's really interesting to think about how that stuff works together.
Else have a question?
Are you guys happy? Or relatively
In this moment, or?
At this moment. I mean, would you have rather have studied medicine and made a gazillion more dollars, or been in business? Are you gonna go back to business school?
Since I own a business, I'd say every day is like business school. I'm happy when business is doing really well, but it's like when you own a business and you're relying on it to, pay your bills or feed you, it can get really scary. So you just gotta kind of have a good reserve and a good, I don't know, just stress maintenance, because some months it's like, I don't know, there's not a lot, there's crickets right now, and then there's other months where it's like, we're rich, let's get cigars, let's go drink. But yeah, so I'm happy right now because we're doing really well right now. Yeah, so in a couple of months I might have a frown on my face, but you never know. Anybody else?
Are you guys happy? Yeah.
Yeah, I am happier than I've been in a long time. I quit my full-time job just over 4 years ago. I worked at a digital print shop for 7.5 years, was a manager there for a while, and just had a headache that would not go away for months, and I quit. It went away instantly. So I am really happy to be able to work for myself, to be able to set my own hours to some extent. When there's craft shows and things, I'm kind of set to their schedules, but being able to pursue the kind of work that I want to do is really what makes me happy and what I would consider being successful. Rather than having all the money in the world, I get to do what I love every day. So, yes, I am happy.
Good job. Are you still happy?
Who said I was to begin with? I mean, as my girlfriend Taylor can probably attest, on average, I probably work like 100 hours a week in the studio, and it's like I'm constantly sacrificing, like, spend time with like friends, family, holidays, like all that stuff just to meet deadlines. And there's been a lot of really stressful times this year. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. Like to be able to get to do stuff for like some of my favorite bands, and it's like, what I'll be sitting up at like 4 a.m. like just drawing tiny lines, and I'm just like, why the hell am I still doing this? And like there's been lots of times where I'll really question it, but it's just like it all really does like pay off in the end. And I mean, you kind of just gotta like push through those harder moments, because it's like, being able to like put something out and like, getting that like, I mean, hopefully a positive response from people, it makes it all feel a lot more worth it. So I would say yes, I am happy. Relatively. I bought a new mattress for the first time in 10 years. That's definitely
I'm pretty happy. I'm similar to Luke. I think like I've felt a lot of like moments of stress, like with projects and stuff, where it's like, why have I put myself in this situation, and like, working late nights on something. And I've failed in many different ways. Like, I've tried many different things, and I'm all in a pursuit to try to figure out what I like most to do. So I think that's worth it. And I'm still like, on step 2 out of 10 or whatever on that path to finding exactly what I want to do. But I think all of it's worth it to experiment and try different stuff and stuff like that. Like it's worth all the stress, because you'll figure out what you most like to do.
Yes, I would say I'm happy. I am really enjoying not being in school. It was wonderful, but it's really nice to go home and just be able to like watch House Hunters and not have to do any homework. It's my favorite thing to do. I really enjoy working somewhere and being part of a team. It's a small business. My boss is really, really nice. He's a great guy, and I also really enjoy going home and not having to deal with the stress that he has to deal with, and just being the employee. So I don't know, I love it. I've learned to do a lot of things during my time there. I didn't know anything about operating embroidery machines or automatic screen printing or a lot of other stuff, and then I started working there, and it just kind of slowly taught me a lot of things. And I can take these skills and I can go anywhere. There's commercial shops all over the world. So I don't know, I love working there, and I feel really valued too, which is important, to be appreciated and valued at the place you work. So I don't know, I think for now I'd definitely say I'm happy, although I might apply to grad school and move to Georgia. I don't know.
But it's
Well, question, which is there any inclination to want to go back to school for, you know, an MFA or certificate or teaching, you know, whatever it might be?
Okay. Well, I can talk about that. Yes, I'm definitely interested. I don't know. I miss as much as I don't miss the stress, I miss being in classes and being around people learning. I also had the chance to be a TA for Anita twice because I loved it so much and I love her so much. And I really found a lot of joy in helping other people learn and teaching. So I think I would be interested. I'm planning on applying to a couple grad schools for next fall. I'm going to see if I get in. If I don't, it's okay. But I don't know. I'm interested in pursuing higher education and potentially teaching at the college level. Could be fun.
I think for other people, if it's, you know, if it's not going back to school, like what your hopes or your goals are for what you'd like to see evolve in your life in the next few years.
I would say I do like constantly learning new things. Like, I mean, I liked being exposed to like web design and different aspects of graphic design and stuff like that. And I would say, like, I remember being in the mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna have to work a certain type of graphic design job, and I gotta get used to doing like web design. And you guys probably, like people who do graphic design, you probably have those thoughts too. Like, you know, I'm gonna have to do some types of graphic design that I don't really like to do for my day job to sustain myself or whatever. And some of that's true. Like you do want to be open to like doing all kinds of different types of work. But I think what's fun is like trying to make yourself do your own work for yourself that is exactly what you want to do, so that you can build up more stuff like that. Because I think the people that I look up to who have found their path and like sort of are like mold breakers doing their own thing or whatever, like that's sort of the pattern. They do their own thing that's sort of like unique, and then eventually enough people pay attention to it, and then they're hired to do exactly that's
You get to be you.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know, it's all a path of like trying a million different things.
I think sometimes I have thoughts about getting a new major, like, you know, trying to go back to school for an MFA or something like that. But I have dreams about school every night, almost every night. Seriously.
Are they dreams or nightmares?
It depends. Most of the time they're nightmares. Most of the time I didn't come to your class for like 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I missed, and it's like the last couple. It's always the last semester. I don't know what's going on with that, but maybe there's loose ends I need to tie up. But like you were saying, you kind of get an education from a lot of things that you would have never expected to get an education in, like even just, you know, doing business type stuff, like trying to find a place to start it and getting, you know, your books in order and all this stuff. I mean, there's like, it's boring stuff, but if you want to do something, you're gonna figure out a way to do it. It just depends on how bad you really want to do it. So school, I would love to come back. I don't have the money for it right now, but or the time, but yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Would you like a bigger office? Would you like a lot of employees?
So yeah, so okay, I guess for the future, I forgot about the part of the question.
That's all right.
The future, so I've been listening to a lot of like, you know, business books or audio books, because I don't read anymore. I don't have time to read. I just listen. Yeah. So a lot of the books that I've been listening to are like, if you've created and you know, I do like printing. I do like it, but I would rather like print my own work or illustrate my own stuff. You know, my own clothing company. But if you have a company that you made that you're working for, you've created a job, not a business necessarily. So the next step of our company is going to be to try to find a way to sort of, you know, relinquish responsibilities, find somebody else to manage it, find somebody who's like really passionate about wanting to have their own company too, who would like to take the reins and grow the printing side further. Because our company is printing and productions, and we actually just invested. We got a big loan out for like $20,000 to get a new camera, so we're going to be doing a lot of like filmmaking type stuff next. That's going to be like our next venture. So yeah, I think relinquishing control, trying to find somebody else to run it for us, so we don't really have to worry about anything. But collecting a small paycheck every month would be really nice, you know. So that's the future of what we're doing, hopefully.
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
And you stopped printing.
Yeah.
You you have somebody print?
Yeah, so I mean, for a while I was kind of thinking about going back to school, but I don't know. I don't think it's in the plans personally. I mean, I know I don't want to do gig posters forever, but I'm hoping whenever I get to that point where I want to find a different job, like I'll have a strong enough portfolio that I can like shop around to different places and be like, hey, like this is what I've done in the past. Just because it is awesome, like it's an awesome field to work in. But at some point, I would like to, settle down and have a family and actually go to bed at like 10 p.m. or something.
I don't think you ever will.
I think you're right. And it's, maybe I could do it forever, but it's definitely kind of, I guess, my next step in this business is finding a sort of sustainability, just so I can kind of balance my life out a little more. Because I definitely, like, it's definitely, I've been very fortunate that it's like really kind of picked up faster than I realized, but it's kind of just hard to keep up with. Because it's like I'll just say yes to too many things, and then before I know it, like I'm not sleeping for a month. But definitely just finding that balance, I think, is the next big move for me.
I thought about going to grad school, I guess 12 years ago. It was kind of either that was a possibility or starting my business was a possibility, and I chose starting my business. I've had thoughts here and there of looking into different programs, but the cost is just prohibitive at this point. And if I did stop my business to go back to school, I don't know how I would either keep it going or pick it up afterwards. But I do miss learning things from people and being around people. I live up in the country now. I have a barn. I'm in my little barn all day printing stuff by myself. So I do try to connect with people. I go to a lot of printing conferences, teach at them, or take workshops, so I'm always learning more and more stuff. I learned how to cast type this summer, met a whole bunch of new people doing that. So I'm always trying to keep learning without having to pay for grad school. And I don't have any aspirations of having employees. I always want to be making my own work and just kind of being in charge of everything. I like to be in charge of all the parts of the process. And handing over control of that to someone else is not what is my plan. So I don't really have plans to grow my print shop beyond just me and maybe some occasional help from someone. But I do want to expand into doing more kind of fine art and artist book work. But it'll still probably just be me and my barn and the chickens.
And the chickens.
Can you guys talk a little bit about your business practice and how you deal with the IRS? Are you a sole proprietor, or you're doing business as? Any problems with auditing? Are they telling you you're a hobbyist versus a visual artist? Are you running into any of those? Lucas had
Asking the real questions.
Well, you guys all have businesses and you're out there and you're achieving great goals, but there's also that end of the IRS and payday does come that you have to give them some money. How are you handling that end of the practice?
I am still a sole proprietor. I do have a DBA, so I am Val Lucas doing business as Box Press. I pay sales tax quarterly. I have an accountant. I think if you can afford it, you should look for an accountant to help you keep track of things and save you money, because there's a lot of stuff that you can write off. Any artwork, art supplies that you buy, anytime you drive to the art store, you go to the post office, you can write all that off. So if you are going to run a business, you need to separate your business expenses from your personal expenses, even if you are a sole proprietor. So I have had a CPA for the last 8 or 9 years. They do my taxes and tell me what I owe or how much of a refund I'll get back. If you are self-employed or running your own business, you have to kind of pay ahead of time. So you pay quarterly estimated taxes. So I'm just on a schedule. I pay an estimated tax, and then at the end of the year, the IRS says, oh, you owe us more, or you paid too much, depending on my sales. So you do have to make sure that you're keeping track of everything. But I haven't had any issues. This is my 12th year in business, and everything's been A-okay so far.
Well, and you're showing a profit margin. So one of the
Yeah, I think you have to show a profit.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, 3 out of 5 years, or else they do consider you a hobbyist, and then you can't write off all that stuff. But even a little profit is okay.
So I've kind of been in flux with I guess, my business standing financially. It was an LLC, and then changed to an S incorporated business, which it gets very complicated, but that's where an accountant. Hiring an accountant is probably the best business expense you will make annually. I have someone who I basically just sort of have like on retainer. Like I pay her X amount a year, and like she helps me do quarterly filings, and then like whenever I have any questions about anything, just because it's like they'll like basically how they set up with an S corp is that it's like on paper like I have employees and unemployment insurance and like payroll and all this stuff, and even though I'm the sole employee. And it gets really confusing, but like that's where they help with that, and they save you thousands. Like she cuts like my annual, like the amount I owe like in half. So I definitely, when you're starting off, hire an accountant and keep that accountant because they will save you so much money.
I agree 100%. Get an accountant, get a really good accountant. And there's a lot of like small business accountants that are great, like family-oriented accountants, generational, and yeah, they save you a ton of money. They do all the things in TurboTax, the other drop-down menus that don't exist on TurboTax. They figure that stuff out. They can help you with like gas mileage. They'll put you right up to the number on everything, so that you're not like raising any red flags and all that. It's completely legal, but the thing is they help you find. That's what they went to school for. We went to school for art, so we can focus on art. They can focus on boring numbers, So, yeah, I would say definitely, accountants are great. Yeah, I haven't had any issues though. Probably once we start making like the big bucks, then they'll come around. But I don't think we make enough money for that yet. They're auditing the big companies because that's the ones that get the biggest return out of. I think if they find bad juju and stuff,
Yeah, I just I'm still in an earlier stage of like figuring out more so like the attributes of what my business is going to be, like Wonder Books and Jordan Levine design, and I also have like Wonder Wares, which is like hats, which these guys actually embroidered the hat I'm wearing. So like stuff like that. It's a different area. Is that going to be a completely different business? Like right now, I've formed an LLC for Wonder Books, but I haven't. Maybe I will. I don't think I'll form another LLC for it. But how is that brand going to exist within that company? I'm still figuring that stuff out. Right now, I'm more so maybe in your boat where I'm working a day job, and doing freelance design on the side, and then on the side, I'm like building up this brand of notebooks and stuff. So I've sort of like taken a step back from it, and I'm thinking more strategically about that stuff. Like right now, where I'm not trying to make as much stuff, I'm more so like I applied to a couple different business development programs. There's one called BCAN, Baltimore Creatives Acceleration Network. It's a cool little office that just like helps people figure stuff like that out. You can go in and make an appointment. There's also Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, which are all these lawyers that donate their time to help pro bono, like help artists figure stuff out pro bono. So I probably will follow these guys' advice and hire an accountant at some point, like when that's necessary. I did just use TurboTax, and like I'm not making enough that it's sort of, I'm still, like I said, like figuring that stuff out.
Justin, Jordan, can you repeat the first acronym, BCAN?
Yeah, BCAN, BCAN.
And what does it stand for?
Baltimore Creatives Acceleration Network. I think they call themselves like Baltimore Creatives or something like that on Instagram. I think they're somewhat affiliated with Micah. I went to a workshop that they put on at Micah one time. All their stuff is free too.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I work for someone who pays an accountant and they pay me. It's wonderful.
All right, I think we might have time for one more question. If anyone has something burning they would like to know.
I think the question has to be asked. Is there anything you wish you knew then?
Okay, yes, student selves. Maybe one piece of advice to student self. What do I wish I knew then that I know now?
Don't dump your boyfriend for 3 days. It's actually really great. Don't get a graphic design degree. just do printmaking. I don't know. No, actually, I'm really thankful. I did 3 different programs.
You did illustration.
I did all kinds of things. I started out getting a graphic design AFA at Montgomery College, realized I didn't want to just look at letters all day, and decided I wanted to do illustration, and then did printmaking. And I'm very thankful that I kind of did 3 different things.
It all comes together.
It all comes together, so don't be pigeonholed by your major, is maybe what I would say.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I would kind of reiterate, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm sort of talking about stuff that I was doing. Like I was trying to look more so outside of school and try to get my fingers in all kinds of different like art scenes, and like I was talking about doing posters for people. Like I think just keep an open mind about whatever the possibility of your end goal as an artist, because it's really hard to know that when you're in college. I'd say just be open-minded and just try everything.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely with open-mindedness and just enjoying your overall experience in school. These are the best years of your lives. No, but I was really stressed out a lot in school with having jobs, while having an internship and, trying to juggle all the classes. And, when you have multiple art classes where you got to think of multiple different, concepts, your brain kind of shuts off after a while. Your creative juices stop flowing and you don't know what to do anymore.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. But it can still be fun. And I think a lot of it is just not letting the stress get to you so much and just realizing that you're going to finish, you're going to do a great job, and you're going to be, 10 years out of school being like, wow, that was 10 years ago that I graduated. That's crazy. That's such a long time ago. I'm old now, whatever. But yeah, so just enjoy it. Enjoy everything. Meet as many people as you can who are like-minded too. I think that's a really important thing, is surrounding you. If you want to do something, especially something in the art field, you really got to distance yourself from friends who are like, oh no, that's not going to work, or if they laugh at it. Those probably are not going to be the friends that you're going to take with you forever. You got to surround yourself with people who get you excited about the extracurricular projects that you're working on, or whatever you're doing that's boosting your career. And those are the ones that help you the most. So I would say, ditch the bad friends, stick with the good ones. Family, yeah, family. Well, sometimes family can be horrible because then they'll tell you not to go to school for art. You know what I mean? So, and the family are telling you, yeah. Yeah, is that what you're saying?
Guidance counselors.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Don't go home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right.
I guess one thing that I wish I knew that I'm still working on is just kind of knowing when to say no. Just because it's really cool working in the printmaking field, because it's something that starts as a hobby that you just do for fun, and then it becomes something that you do to make money on the side, and then it becomes something that it's your main source of income. And it's really cool to be able to do something that you love for a living. But it's when you have something that goes from your hobby to your job, then it's your entire life. And so kind of really keeping that balance of life and work is really important. And I mean, I really need to practice this a little more. But it's your mental health will really take a toll if you don't find ways to sort of regulate it. And it's you can say no to jobs and you'll still get offered more work. That doesn't mean you're gonna get blacklisted from every person ever. If you're just no, I'm too busy, I can't, then it's people understand that. It's you can't be hard on yourself for not being able to say yes to everything. Because I mean, sometimes it gets to a point where it's you really need to kind of put yourself first and think about that. So.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Working on your life balance. This is what I do 24/7, but I love it, so it's been working out great so far. I think the important thing to remember is that school is where you should learn as much as possible, and then you can figure it out later. So don't be afraid to take that weird class that you've never heard of. Don't be afraid to try new things, and then when you get out, don't be afraid to change and say, well, that's stuff that I hated in school. Maybe that's really interesting now. But I think my experience looking back almost 15 years later is that I was just in college to learn as much as possible. So I was a general fine arts major, and I took all sorts of classes. And somehow, something from all of those different classes, whether it's ceramics or Roman history, some part of that has informed me as an artist, even if it's not something I think about all the time. So just remember, you're here to learn, not necessarily to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life when you get out of here. So don't be afraid to try everything. And get some sleep.
Yeah, that's a great way to finish up. So